Hi everybody. So my mom said that you wanted to know how I'm making the healthcare masks that I've been making. And I actually have been using kind of a hodgepodge of different recommendations from different people. So I just figured I'd make you a video. This is the finished product that I've been making. It's a mask with a wire up here. This is important. If anybody's ever worked in healthcare and worn one of these masks, you know that they have like a little bit of a wire in there to form it around your nose, because if you don't have that, I'll show you the other side, it just kind of sits around here and you've got these openings around your nose. So the wire is something that I added. I just used this 22 gauge craft wire. It's what I use for my NYX purses to make my handles. So I had a bunch of it already. I'm also making my own ties. Now, if you have elastic or if you have like a 3/8 inch cotton ribbon of some kind, like a grosgrain or something, you can skip the step of making your own ties. I have already made 3 for the one I'm going to make for the video, so I'm just going to make 1 to show you how. So what I have as far as supplies, I have the 22 gauge wire, I have my iron here, I have my sewing machine, and then I have, so you're going to need, for making your ties, you're going to need 4 strips of 2 inch by 20 inch fabric. And I'm cutting up my old scrubs because they claim to be antimicrobial, so I figure that's a really good fabric, but people are using cotton. These are old drapes. The pretty colorful part is this drape that I have in my playroom. So here's the other part. You're going to need 3 blocks of 10 inch by 7 inch fabric. One's going to be a middle layer, so it can be whatever, and then 2 outer layers, so if you want to make those too pretty, you can. So I'm going to start by making the strap, the tie strap. They look like this when they're done. What it is this 20 by 2 inch fabric. I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to iron it into 3. So I'm going to fold both outside pieces to the middle like this, and then I'm going to iron it so it lays flat, and then I'm going to fold that in half, and that's where I'm going to sew. So I've got the 2 rough edges folded in to the middle, and then I'm folding both of these in again. So you've got 2 folded edges on one side, 1 folded edge on the other, and you're going to stitch this all the way down. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll just talk while I'm doing it. So I've been making these for my colleagues in veterinary medicine. We have given our official masks to the human healthcare industry. Of course, we're not worried about catching this from our patients, although we are definitely worried about catching it from our clients, the patient's owners. You cannot catch this from your animals. I'm sure you've already read that, but if you wanted to hear it from the mouth of a veterinary professional, you cannot catch this from your animals, despite some of the claims out there. But so our regulations are just a little bit more lax. We really try to hold up all of the standards, the same standards of human healthcare, but as far as the law goes, we have a little more leniency. So in times like this, we are able to use these masks for things that human healthcare workers wouldn't be able to use it for, like operating. And so that's what we're using them for. We are autoclaving them, so they are sanitized. And so it's good to note that the autoclave, it will sterilize fabric, and it will sterilize metal, but we don't want to put any plastic or latex or anything like that, because what the autoclave does is it puts a bunch of steam into a chamber, and steam sterilizes everything. So the metal, the wire will be fine. Some people have said they're using pipe cleaners. Those are not autoclavable. I'm not 100% sure why. I'm sure it has something to do with the fuzzy part, with whatever the fuzzy part is made out of. I'm just sewing straight down this tie here. I'm trying to go fast because I know the video is going to be long. Alright, so there's that tie. You can see that I have the stitch down the side holding the two folded ends together. And so if you have any questions about that, just email me and I'll try to answer them. I've never made a sewing tutorial before. This is actually like one of the first times I'm actually using my sewing machine. So if I say something that you experienced sewers are like, well, duh, it's not because I didn't think you knew it, it's because I didn't know it before, like yesterday. So I'm just ironing all of these 10 by 7 pieces flat, and then I'll show you how I'm assembling this mask. All right. So what we want to do is we want to take our middle layer, the layer that we're not going to see. It's just mostly a built-in filter. And that's going to lay flat first. I'm laying it like a landscape in front of me. And then we're going to take one of the outer layers and turn it pretty side out. So pretty side on top. Right on top of this. And then we're going to lay our ties, or if you have elastic or ribbon, this is when you're going to lay it. You're going to put it, and I'm going to turn the camera around so I can show you what I'm doing. Can I turn the camera around? Okay, I'll just hold it like this. You're going to put it, here's the end of my tie. It's not pretty, sorry. And you're gonna put it about 1 inch down. And you're gonna put the strap going towards the middle. So my strap is going towards the middle here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a pin here. I'm gonna put the rest of my straps on the same way. In each corner, so about 1 inch from the bottom, laying towards the middle. The other side will go the same way, laying towards the middle, 1 inch from the bottom. So I'm going to pin all those down now. Using straight pins, which you know. And then once you've got those pinned down, you're going to take your other outer layer and you're going to lay it pretty side down in front of you, right on top of everything. And then you're going to move your pin to the outside of all of this so that you're holding everything together with the pin. And I'll show you once I get this pinned how it looks before I start sewing. Because I have made about 30 of these now. And so I've kind of gotten into a little bit of a groove with how I position my ties when I start sewing, because the first couple of masks that I did, I ended up accidentally sewing pieces of the ties into my other seams and had to, of course, go and scrap the seam and start all over again, which was not fun. So I came up with a little bit of a system that has served me well since then. It's kind of, you know, fun and relaxing, especially once you've done a few and you're just kind of in muscle memory mode. I apologize if I'm not doing a good walkthrough. Hopefully, I'll try to type the instructions up too and see if maybe I'm better at typing them. Okay, so what I've done is I've pinned everything down and I've actually taken my straps and pulled them out one long end. So all 4 of them are hanging out here and they're just in here going this way. And I found that it's easier to just worry about them when you get to that end than having to worry about them for all 4 ends. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start sewing this on the short end, and I'm going to sew in my first strap. I'm going to start it down here in the middle. And I'm going to sew my first strap on. I'm going to leave the needle down, turn 90 degrees, sew all the way down the other 3 sides. And then when I get back to the first side, I'm going to sew this other strap on the first side end, but leave about a 2-inch gap. The 2-inch gap is for us to turn it inside out through that gap, and then we will reinforce that seam later. So start sewing here. Now, another tip that I'm sure you will say, duh, is to remove the straight pin before you actually sew, because you can break your sewing machine needle, which I did. And since this is one of my first sewing projects, I did not have a replacement sewing needle, and so I had to seek help from my 8-year-old niece, who is a much more experienced sewer than I am. And she had an extra needle she was able to give me. Humorous, I know. Okay, so what I'm doing, and I'm sure that this is not a new technique for you, but it, like I said, it was for me. So I'm leaving the needle down, lifting the foot, turning the fabric, and I'm just doing about a 1/4 inch seam all the way around this. So a tip I learned, if you're a new sewer like me somehow, is that you always want to start anything you sew with the needle down. So every time you're ready to start sewing, you put the needle down. Okay, here I am at the end, so I'm putting the needle down, which you'll have to manually do. I don't know if it's actually possible to stop the machine with the needle down, but I've never been able to accomplish it. So I'm taking that pin out there, lowering my foot, and there we go, down the short seam. It looks like I have more than a 1/4 inch here because my fabric is just not cut perfectly. Because I haven't learned a good trick for cutting super straight edges in fabric yet. So if anyone would like to share that tip with me, that'd be great. Okay, so here I am on my long seam that my cords are hanging out of, my ties. So I'm just gonna shove those in. If you're using elastic, they recommend doing 45-degree angles in the corners, and you're just gonna have 2 pieces on the small ends. I will try to find and link to a tutorial where someone uses elastic, just in case one of you actually has that laying around. I did not have elastic laying around. So I had to look up how to hand make these ties. Back to my first side, and again I want to leave about a 2-inch gap, so I want to make sure that I get the tie sewn on, but other than that I want there to be a nice gap that I can turn all my fabric inside out with. So here you go. Got a 2-inch gap, and now pull it out, cut my thread, and so now, of course, since I didn't cut my thread appropriately, I'll go and I'll trim all of this excess fabric off, and this is just, you know, me being impatient and not being precise with my cutting, but a good tip if you have cut perfect edges is still to go and cut the corner piece off, and that's just going to prevent it from being bulky when you turn it inside out. Okay, and when you go down these edges with the ties, I actually don't cut through the ties to make them shorter because I like a little longer tie on the inside just to give it more stability. But we are going to reinforce these seams, so if you want to just go and cut every excess piece of fabric off, that's totally acceptable. All right, there's all my scrap fabric. And then we're just gonna pull everything through this 2-inch gap we have here. Alright, so here's my little rectangle. Now you're going to come in with your finger or with a pencil or something and just push out the corners from the inside. So here we are, we've got a 3-layer mask. And now here is where I'm going to put in my wire, and then I'm going to go around the whole thing with a reinforced stitch. So I'm going to iron it just because I have learned that ironing things is very helpful when you're sewing. Okay. So here's my 22 gauge wire. I'm just gonna make a piece that's like just about the length of the long end here. Cut it with other scissors because this will ruin your scissors completely. They will not be able to cut fabric anymore. And so I'm just gonna take the ends of this and blunt them just so the pokey parts of these wires don't come poking through the fabric. And I've got this little you don't have to have one of these to do this, but sometimes it's easier. Okay, so I'm shoving this wire through my little 2-inch gap, putting it all the way up in the top, and I'm gonna sew that side first. And I'm just gonna make sure that my reinforced seam goes below the wire so that it holds the wire up at the top. Okay. And again, I'm doing about a 1/4 inch reinforced seam all the way around. Starting with my needle down. Definitely keep this wire out of the way. Ooh, put my foot down. See, unexperienced sewer here. Because that wire could break your needle just as easily as a straight pin, I assume. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna stop the video and figure that out, and then I'll